Hey there, art nerds. Today we're taking a look at the ColourBlock Watercolor Pan Set. This is a 28 pieces, but I think they're also counting the, well, you'll find out. It's a 28 piece set with, I believe, 24 colors inside, and they come in Gansai style pans. I purchased this a couple of years ago and I'm working through my backlog, but hopefully today's review is still helpful, useful, and informative for you guys because this product is still on the market. Hey there, art nerds. So today I am back with another mystery watercolor. Well, I know what this is, and this is the ColourBlock 28 piece watercolor set. This was purchased from Amazon sometime last year, and it has been kicking around my studio ever since. And since I'm trying to work through my backlog, I thought today was a perfect day to unbox and swatch these watercolors for you guys. Now, these kind of put me in mind from what I saw online of the Artistro watercolors, the Hannah MP / Artistro collab in particular that I reviewed as part of my Easily Influenced series. Now, this did come from Amazon, and it did come in Amazon packaging, and this was the interior packaging, so I left it as is for you guys. Oh, these look very, very chalky. Love it. So inside, we have a thank you card from ColourBlock. I want us to visit their website. And that is that. And then this is fairly simply wrapped. It is, oh yeah, these are unsecured. It is very dry and dusty looking watercolors in a wooden block or a wooden box with a very small, I don't know why they went with the travel size, watercolor brush. On the back, we have digital swatches of our colors. So no pigment information whatsoever. Who is surprised by that? This is from Artistopia Inc. And this is in Tustin Ranch, California. These are made in China. So the color pans that they're showing look like they have a little bit of shine to them. They look more like Gansai style pans than what we received here. We have a watercolor brush, we have an acrylic palette and wooden box, and then we have a watercolor pad. These look very dry and dusty compared to what they showed. These are held with tape dots. Let's get in there. And I want to be careful with it because once I get this plastic wrap off, these are going to go everywhere. So the fact that the the acrylic palette is on top of this actually makes it kind of hard to open because it's hard to get a knife in there and actually cut it open. Oh, yeah. Ugh. These, well, you can't see. So hopefully when I remove the acrylic palette, you guys will be able to get a better look. Oh, there is some serious cracking. These are so dry. All right, let's remove the, oh, okay. All right, so this is actually the lid. I kind of like that as an idea. I wouldn't use an acrylic palette for watercolors personally due to beading issues, but these are so dry. Why are these so dry? Let's see if I can get one out without removing the whole thing. So these do look like they are supposed to be similar to Gansai style watercolors, but they don't really look like Gansai style watercolors. They don't have any information on them. We don't have any pigment info, and the color info is what we have right here. So we're in for an exciting day today. Then we also have a watercolor pad, acid-free, so probably, I can't even say it wrong now, probably cellulose-based. All right, I got it open. Oh, this is like so white. It's like purple. Okay, I would say this is like a decent white. That's like, what? Okay, all right. So these are designed in the USA. they are made in China, but there is a U in ColourBlock, which is not really something we do in the US. I mean, you might do it for affectation, but it's not a common thing. So that's an interesting choice right there. So what I want to do with you guys today is we are going to swatch these watercolors. We're going to swatch them on their strange purpley paper, but we are also going to swatch these on Blick cold press watercolor paper. I don't have any affiliation with Blick. I am not currently at this moment part of their affiliates program. I have just been using the Blick block, a cotton rag block, for pretty much all of my watercolor reviews for the past 3 years now. So it makes for a nice standard of comparison. And it's also fairly inexpensive for a cotton rag block. That doesn't make it cheap. It's just less expensive than some. So that's why I happen to use the Blick block that you guys see here. So we are going to swatch these watercolors. We're going to do some color mixing. Hopefully we're going to do a wet into wet test. And then I want to compare these against some other watercolors that these remind me of. Right now I am thinking the Hana MP / Artistro collaboration, as well as Kuretake Gansai Tambi. Now, since these are dusty watercolors, and I'm trying to blow the dust off, I'm gonna try and give these their best shot. Give them a spritz of water to help them activate. And if you are new here, hi, hello, welcome. If you are old here, welcome back. I am Becca Hilburn. I am a watercolor comic artist and illustrator. I make the watercolor comics 7-inch Cara. And I am currently working on getting chapter 8 finished up so I can start sharing it as a web comic again at 7inchcara.com. You can read the first 8 chapters over there if you'd like, or if you're a fan of the Dead Tree format, you can order a book from my shop at nattasoup.com/shop. In fact, if you like my art, I highly recommend that you check me out over on my shop because I do have art prints, totes, stickers, and all kinds of other adorable goodies, including books for the art book collectors out there. But I also hope you will join me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and I'm pretty active on all 3. And your support and encouragement, you engaging with my art, really means a lot to me. So hopefully I'll see you guys over there. But I bring my years of experience with watercolor, painting with watercolor, doing illustrations with watercolor, and reviewing watercolors to the table here today to review these watercolors. So hopefully you guys will find this helpful, useful, and informative. And if you're ever looking for watercolor reviews, whether it is probably student grade like this or more professional grade, make sure you check out 2 of my playlists. I have a professional grade watercolor playlist and I also have a student grade showdown playlist, and hopefully that will answer your questions. I review watercolors from the lens of a watercolor illustrator and watercolor comic artist, which I think makes me a little bit unique here on YouTube. So hopefully I can bring a little something extra to the table. So I want to start by swatching on their watercolor pad. Why not? This is incredibly thin. It's like not even cardstock thick. It's like almost printer paper thin. So it doesn't bode well for the watercolors, or not the watercolors, for the paper. Once spritzed though, these seem to really kind of come to life. They are much more shiny. They look a lot more like Gansai. They look a lot more like the image that we saw, teensy tiny itty bitty, over here on the back. I am not going to use the water brush because I personally do not like water brushes all that much, and I want to be as fair to these watercolors as I am capable of being. I've disclosed my biases to you guys. I also purchased these out of pocket with funds from my Patreon. So if you like my watercolor reviews, you want to help me continue to do watercolor reviews, you can join me for just $2 a month at patreon.com/nattasoup, and you will also gain not only early access to upcoming reviews, sometimes months in advance, but you're also going to gain backer exclusive access to tutorials. I've stopped sharing those here on YouTube for the most part. You're also going to gain backer exclusive access to printable line arts if you like to paint or color. And you will also gain backer exclusive access to the materials that I create for my in-person classes, because I am also an art educator, not just here on YouTube and on the internet at large, but also through my local public library system. This is another video that I could swear I took show notes for, and now I can't find them. So we're gonna start by swatching on their paper. It's actually pretty challenging to get these activated, even though we gave them a spritz. And I'm gonna swatch them a little bit differently than I normally do, going down first and then going over second, and that's to try and avoid polluting the water and polluting the colors too much. These are pretty weak, and it does take a good amount of scrubbing to be able to get some color up, as you guys can kind of see. They really don't want to activate. I believe these are dye-based watercolors, and they kind of remind me of the Prang watercolor review that I'm working on, except I kind of feel like Prang is better because they're less expensive, and also you kind of know what to expect when it comes to children's grade or Prang watercolors, whereas with these ColourBlock watercolors you may be expecting Gansai style performance and then you might be disappointed. These are weird. I think they lost way too much moisture while they were sitting, which I haven't ever really seen happen like that, where it gets all dusty. I'm having a lot of activation issues with some colors. So what I think I'm going to do is the opposite of what I always tell you guys about not letting too much water sit on Gansai. I'm going to attempt to rehydrate these. I mean, another thing you could do is take them in when you're taking a shower, take them into the bathroom and see if that helps. I don't know. This is uncharted territory for me, so we're just gonna like play it by ear. I'm gonna let that soak in. I'm gonna let this dry. I am gonna go switch out my water. It's pretty muddy, but we also started with some of the most, so I could like figure out my placement. We started with some of the most opaque colors, or colors that would have the most opacity, so I'm not really surprised that it's muddy like this. And maybe we'll see some difference when we swatch on the Blick. This paper that comes with it is not great. Not a good watercolor paper. Not what I would recommend. It's very, very thin. It's a really weird color. So if you're painting people, this tone, unless you have something with a lot of opacity, is gonna basically make everybody look like a zombie. It's not a great watercolor paper. Five Below has a watercolor pad that's not half bad. Canton XL makes a watercolor pad that I like a lot better than this. So I do have expensive taste, but I don't think that's the problem right now. These dried a lot less saturated than we kind of figured that, right? But these look like they soaked up the water that we sprayed, and they're looking a lot more like regular Gansai. So I'm hoping that we've maybe solved the problem from them sitting a little bit too long. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these swatches here, and we're going to move on over to our Blick pad. Already put down my lines to test opacity. So for my new friends, what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be swatching on a cotton rag paper. We're going to be doing a mass tone swatch, and then we're going to be doing a gradiated wash out swatch with clean water. Hopefully that will tell us some additional information about these paints. We're going to be looking at opacity. We're going to be looking at granulation. Once we have finished with the swatches, we're going to do a little bit of color mixing, and we're going to do what I call the wet into wet, or the mud test, where if there's room on this piece of paper, if not, I'll have to grab another one. I basically create a area of water, drop in color wet into wet, and we kind of see what happens and what those colors do. I want to do a fair review for these, so I sprayed them again and gave them some time to reactivate, and now we're swatching on Blick paper. We're doing a mass tone swatch as well as a washout swatch, where I use clean water to wash it out about halfway down, and that will allow us to see how the colors move and whether or not there's any interesting granulation in these watercolors. And even on cotton rag paper, which tends to bring out the best of a watercolor, I am severely unimpressed with these ColourBlock watercolors. I think these have dye in them. There's a few different telltale signs, but one of them is the way they flood the color wash. This isn't the end of the world for some artists. I don't super love it. I prefer to work generally with pigment-based watercolors. Dyes tend to be a cheaper option. But I do want to continue to explore these and to share them with you guys. That's just something that I noticed early on. The fact that they didn't list any pigment info is also pointing to the use of dyes. So I'm going to go change out our water cup, and we're going to do a little bit of color mixing. And I actually want to use the acrylic lid they included. This is actually kind of dirty though, so I'm going to clean it with water, not rubbing alcohol, because I found that rubbing alcohol can start to like ruin acrylic. So I'm going to use water, clean it off, and we'll try color mixing with this, and you guys will probably be able to see why I don't think this, an acrylic palette, is such a good idea as a mixing palette for watercolor. So the way I like to do color mixing tests is I like to do two of them. I like to do atomic, which is what most people are familiar with when it comes to color mixing, where we take two colors and we slam them together and we have a secondary color. I also like to do optical, where we basically create a grid pattern and glaze one layer of color on top of the other. I'm going to start by laying down the swatches for our optical mixing, and that'll give them a chance to dry while we're working on our atomic mixing. It does seem like I finally got the colors to at least wake up somewhat, and I'm going to use the acrylic palette they included for color mixing. You can see how this causes problems. It's hard to get the color onto the palette. It's hard to get the color to stay, like to deposit on the palette, so you can actually mix a substantial amount of color. Acrylic tends to be treated with something, so that's a glossy finish. A matte finish would be better. It's not as attractive as, you know, a cover for a watercolor box, but it works better as an actual mixing surface. Another issue is that this is a clear palette, and a white or even a gray palette would be better for color accuracy. I work on a white Teflon surface. It looks gray, but it is white Teflon, so you can actually see the colors a lot better. But if you wanted to bring this out for travel watercolor, like they suggest, and you were holding it, it would be really hard to see the colors that you actually get. We were able to get some secondary colors, although I find them to be kind of muted and unimpressive. These have some really weird, patchy, scaly layering going on. That doesn't bode well. I can't tell you what it means, but it's not good. It could be like I picked up too much paint. It could be weird drawing. It could be all kinds of things. But we actually went for a 30-minute walk around the house, and my house is 81 degrees where I'm recording right here at 38% humidity. So it should be dry. So we're going to move on now to the wet into wet test. For the wet into wet test, I'm going to use the bottom of the paper here, and we're just going to start dabbing in various colors to see how they mix, to see how they flow, to see how they handle in a like high water situation. This is relevant if you like to do like sunsets or sunrises, or if you want to paint ocean scenes or any scene where you're going to be putting a lot of color down, wet into wet, to see how the colors mix and how the colors move. We're not seeing any real granulation with these watercolors, and I'm not necessarily seeing as much movement as I've seen with some other brands. So for this wet into wet test, I'm not really seeing any granulation. I'm not really seeing much opacity. I am seeing a weird like glycerin hard edge that you guys can see at the bottom where it took the longest to dry. I feel like these are probably dye-based, like I mentioned earlier. Again, that's not the end of the world, although if you do want some dye-based watercolors, actually I'm just now noticing you get a glycerin sheen over here. That's not something I want in my watercolors. Some people might want like a sheen to it or a patina to it. That's really not a quality that I want or that I'm looking for, and I feel like that's probably the cause of this mess up here, is that we had some resist to layering. So that's, in fact, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm seeing it. That's not a good sign. At least not for me. So next thing I want to do is I want to pull out some, well, I want to check out ColourBlock online, and then I want to pull out some very similar watercolors to give you guys an idea of just kind of what we're looking at and some other alternatives on the market. Okay, so I pulled up ColourBlock on Amazon first. So around $25.99. There's actually 2 sets. You can see that these look a lot more juicy than what we got, but a lot drier than the state they're in now. The other set is a 17-piece watercolor set with, you know, fewer paints in it. It's a little bit cheaper. So I feel like I have seen ColourBlock around. I think they had an art kit that looked kind of promising Christmas a few years ago. I opted not to get it though, because while I have been reviewing watercolor kits here and there over the years to help parents shop for the artists in their lives, it's a lot of work and it gets really expensive. So I can't afford to do it all the time every year. So according to Amazon, this is a portable watercolor kit. It's a beautiful 28-piece set, perfect for artists on the go. I don't know if I would agree to that. 24 vibrant watercolor pans, a refillable water brush pen, that's probably why they're calling it a travel kit, an acrylic mixing palette, a 6x8 watercolor pan, and a durable wooden storage box to keep everything neatly organized. They promise vibrant watercolor paint, which is not my lived experience here. They do say highly pigmented, but I guess since they're not using pigments, they mean very colorful. Now, I see over here, nope, still not pigment info, which makes sense. These are probably not big pigment based. Flexible techniques, so they promise smooth even washes without hard edges, and we have already seen hard edges and a glycerin edge on these, so they're striking out. And here's some, that is acrylic paint. That's not even watercolor, that is acrylic paint on their acrylic palette. Why are they showing, why are you lying to people? Y'all let me know in the comments below why. 100% non-toxic. So, okay, vibrant colors, rich pigment, clear and strong, without graininess, 100% non-toxic. So for it to be non-toxic, it is probably glycerin-based, and it is probably utilizing dyes, and without graininess, they can deliver that if they're doing dye-based. Although some of the colors do have some graininess, like the black and the ultramarine blue. And they also have a shimmering metallic set. So that is, oh man, we are across the board. Some people like it, some people hate it. And then I'm going to check out the ColourBlock store on Amazon. So it looks like they also have soft pastels. A lot of soft pastels actually. Maybe some pencil sets, some acrylic sets. Let's see, holiday sets. So I am recording this in May, so I'm not looking for anything particularly holiday-y. I'm kind of curious to see if I can find the kit that I had seen around. I don't think it's this, because this looks like literally every Michaels kit that makes me want to pull my hair out. It's like a big box kit. This might have been closer, but it still looks pretty like not great. I'm trying to be nicer. This is their Amazon. Let's check out their actual website. Oh boy, there's things going on already. This was the box that I had seen, this thing here. And from like the tiny pictures on Amazon, it didn't look half bad. But I do not plan on buying it, so we will never know. Looks like they provide kits for class. They have an Instagram. All right, so this is looking pretty similar already. It seems like they've got a pretty standard format of the small wooden box with the acrylic palette to kind of close it off, and then they slot different things inside. Makes sense. You find a thing that works. This looks like we've seen these 1,000 million times before. Literally everybody offers these chalky wonders. And then we have the nondescript tube. Looks like ointment tube watercolor. So I am betting they are white labeling these from somebody else. So that is ColourBlock's site. But there's one more thing I want to check out. They also have the name Artistopia. And other than being in Irvine, California, they do have a Amazon listing, which brings us back to the ColourBlock. So it's not necessarily like a separate company. Like sometimes with white label products, we'll see them sold under like Lightwish and then Art Whale. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of different brands will all be selling the same products, and they may all be part of the same parent company, but it can be hard to suss out. It seems like Artistopia is the parent company for ColourBlock. I'm not digging these paints, and I'm probably not going to do a field test with them, but I do want to do some comparative swatches. So we have the Madisi watercolors released by Lightwish. The full review for these is already up on the channel. We have the Artistro X Hannah MP watercolor palette, which may or may not be out as an easily influenced premiere by the time that you guys see this. And then I have my Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolors. I've had these for several years, and they are in the Studio MM watercolor tower. So I'll just grab, I think it's the 36 color set. I kept them organized by set still to make my own life easier. We are going to start with the ColourBlock, and then we're gonna move on to the, oh, it's so tempting. So many options. Then I think, you know what? I'll decide as I go. But I want to do the Kuretake fairly early on, so I might do them next, because people sure do love to compare Gansai style watercolors to the Kuretake Gansai Tambi. And I mean, there's a lot of different, as you guys can see, and this isn't even showing the Paul Rubens Gucci eye. There's a lot of this kind of watercolor that's coming onto the market right now. So to compare them all and be like, it's just like Kuretake Gansai Tambi, I don't really think that's a very fair way to talk about them, because it kind of flattens out a lot of the nuance. So I do want to get the comparison early so that you guys can kind of understand why these are nothing like the Gansai Tambi. We're starting with the ColourBlock watercolors kind of as our baseline, so that you guys have the reference on the page itself. This set is a 24 color set, so I should have room to do all the swatches going down vertically on this Blick block bound watercolor paper. I'm giving you guys a close-up here so you guys can actually see how the colors are going down, and I am using a flat silver black velvet brush, which I'm going to be using for all of these swatches. There is a water brush included in the set. I am not a fan of water brushes, as I've said a bunch of times. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, they just don't work well for me. So in, you know, the face of trying to be as fair as possible, I'm going to work with brushes that I like so that I can focus on reviewing the watercolors themselves instead of being upset at the brushes. Next is the Kuretake Gansai Tambi 36 color set. This is a set that I've had for a while. A friend gave me this set a while back, and it is in a Studio MM 3D printed stacker. So it doesn't, it's not in like the official packaging, but it's in what I use in my studio. So I'm kind of biased. I have been using Kuretake's Gansai Tambi paints for a while. I really like them. I like the color delivery. I like how immediately they activate. They can turn soupy if you leave water on them for too long. So you don't necessarily need to pre-activate them a whole lot, but this is kind of like the standard. This is the one that people are familiar with. This is the one that everybody has reviewed and talked about, and everybody's got 1,000 tutorials on their channels where they use these paints, right? These are the ones that people are familiar with, so I thought it was important to include them in this review because this is the one that people are probably going to be comparing them against. And frankly, they are not really anything like the Kuretake Gansai Tambi paints except for format. I would say the ColourBlock paints are more like a children's grade watercolor, reminiscent of like Crayola or Prang, and not so much like a Gansai style watercolor. So I have a lot of videos about Kuretake Gansai Tambi here on the channel. I frequently review their new products. So if you're interested in these paints or in paints from Kuretake, make sure you check out some of the playlists that I will have linked for you guys, especially if you're interested in learning more about Gansai, Guchiai, and Edagame painting. So anyway, I feel kind of guilty saying that Kuretake Gansai Tambi is kind of the gold standard. You can get it a bunch of different places. You don't have to just get it on Amazon. It's actually not that expensive. Next is the Artistro X Hana MP watercolors. This review went live recently. This is another kind of Amazon brand, so Artistro white labels products. I'm pretty sure that these are semi-art dye-based watercolors, and generally I don't care for dye-based watercolors, but I actually really like these. The colors are very bright, very immediate, very saturated, especially when you compare them against the ColourBlock paints. These are so much more fun. If you love bright, brilliant, vibrant color, I would recommend this set over the ColourBlock set. The prices are a little bit different, and I will put in the prices for you guys so that you can compare, but this is just a better set if you want dye-based watercolors with loads of color. And then finally, the Madisi Lightwish palette. I reviewed this fairly recently on the channel as well. These are also in a Gansai style format, so the larger pans, it's easier to get the brush in. And I like these better than the ColourBlock watercolors as well. Again, more saturation. I did a full field test with these where I painted a daylily bouquet, and I liked how they handled. I would definitely put them in the student grade category, but they are fun. They are larger paints. I know some people have compared these to Kuretake Gansai Tambi as well, claiming that they are almost the same, and they're not. They're not, and they cost almost as much. So if you really want a Gansai style paint that isn't dye based, I would recommend the Kuretake Gansai Tambi. And if you want a dye based one, I would recommend semi-art or the Hana MP collaboration. So in general, I would recommend that you not buy the ColourBlock at all. If you want a dye-based watercolor that activates immediately, the Artistro / Hana MP collaboration, and I specify it like this because they do offer other products, and this is the only one that I've tried so far. These come in a nice wooden box as well, but they may be on the pricey side. The Madisi watercolors are fine. They also seem to be dye-based, but they're not as good as Mei-Liang pigments. If you want large pans with immediate color that are tried and tested, I'd say go with Kuretake Gansai Tambi. They're like always on sale somewhere, and you can find them almost anywhere, not just on Amazon. So what are the pros and cons of the ColourBlock watercolors? Well, the wooden box is kind of neat. So what about the cons? They're chalky, they have weak activation, they have weak color, poor color mixing, and they seem to be dye-based. So for me, these are a no-go. What is my verdict on the ColourBlock watercolors? You can very safely skip this set. I do not plan on field testing these as they're pretty awful, and I have multiple large pan Gansai style paints that handle better. So my recommendation would be, if you can, skip this set. I'm not going to be doing a field test with these paints because I really don't like them, and I'm really not trying to torture myself with forcing myself to use paint and demonstrate paints that I don't care for. If you guys really want to see a field test of these to see how they handle, let me know down in the comments below, and I may be willing to do that. But All of the other watercolors that I talked about in this video do have field tests so that you can get that basis for comparison. I've painted with Kuretake Gansai Tambi a lot. I have a field test for the Hannah MP collaboration, and I have a field test for the Lightwish Madisi palette. So if you're curious in seeing how those other paints that I like better handle, I do have field tests for you guys to make it just a little bit more convenient. But all in all, I would recommend that you skip this set and you get one of those other sets instead, especially considering how this set is honestly not that much cheaper than the Kuretake Gansai Tambi set, and you can find the Kuretake Gansai Tambi set, like I said, loads of places. So if you want to support a favorite local business, you could buy it from them. You could wait for an Amazon sale like Black Friday and then get the set, the Kuretake Gansai Tambi set then. So you have more options than with this set, which is only available on Amazon. So I would highly recommend you don't buy the ColourBlock watercolor set. These watercolors are very, they have a lot of extenders and shininess to them, a lot of glycerin, and they're just not as impressive as similar Gansai style watercolors that are at a similar price point that are available from similar or better vendors. So I would recommend you go ahead and skip the ColourBlock watercolor set. But if your opinion differs from mine, if you enjoy this set, if you would recommend this set, let me know down in the comments below. We can agree to disagree, and I can always learn something new. I hope you guys found today's review to be helpful, useful, and informative. If you would do me a favor, I would love it if you would check out my watercolor art. I share it over on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. And I also have a watercolor webcomic, 7-inch Carat, which you can read at 7inchcarat.com. If you're new here, make sure that you click subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you never miss an update from me. And it would mean the world to me if you enjoyed this review, if you found it helpful, useful, and informative, to hit the like button, leave a comment, because that always helps with the algorithm, and maybe share this review in a community that you participate in. Your positive word of mouth means the world to me, and it helps so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope to see you guys again soon with another art supply review, and I hope this was helpful in helping you guys make art a habit. Bye guys!